Okay, Rachel, thank you so much for joining me on Beyond MD. I know that the last several months at HOOPP must be really, really busy with the news coming out that it's opening its doors to incorporated doctors in Ontario. So I'm really excited to have you here and really grateful that you're able to make the time. Rachel, maybe let's kick off by you giving us an overview of HOOPP, some of its history, the number of members that it serves, the assets that it manages. I'd love to hear all this.
Sure. Thank you so much for giving us this opportunity to talk about HOOPP and to join your podcast. HOOPP is a private independent trust that's been operating in Ontario for some time, and our mission is to deliver pensions to healthcare workers in Ontario. So we are a mission-driven organization to deliver on the pension promise. What that means is we have over 475,000 members, over 700 employers in our plan. As at December 31, 2023, we had over $112 billion of assets under management. And we like to proudly say that for every dollar in future benefits that our plan offers, we have $1.15 in our plan. But that's sort of the big picture of, the who and the what. But I think it's important to know that what we are is a defined benefit pension plan that was established for healthcare workers in Ontario. And what that means is across Ontario, those 475,000 members come from various sectors of healthcare. And what we do is provide them with a pension in retirement. We like to talk about a safe, secure, and predictable pension in retirement for our members.
Okay, Rachel, I love to understand how things work. So when it comes to a defined benefit pension, maybe you can tell us exactly what that is, because we hear that term. And then on the other hand, we hear about defined contribution pension. So tell us what a defined benefit pension is.
Sure, that's my favorite topic to talk about, actually. So a defined benefit pension plan is a pension where what you're going to get when you go to retire from the plan is defined. In contrast to a defined contribution plan, where what is known at the outset is how much money you are putting in at any given time. So in a defined contribution plan, you put in your contributions, and wherever those contributions might grow at the end of the day at retirement, that's your retirement income. A plan like HOOPP is very different. What we can offer is a benefit that you can anticipate receiving in retirement, because that's the promise that we're delivering on. The defined benefit is based on your earnings, your years of service in the plan, and a formula that we set. And so when a member joins our plan, they can sort of reasonably predict what their future retirement income will be with us, assuming everything stays the same. And over time, while you participate in the plan, you do make contributions in the plan, but your benefit at the end of the day isn't a product particularly of those contributions. It's not just what those contributions have made plus interest. It's the benefit that we've promised you to receive over time. And in fact, what we share in our annual report on most years is that our evaluation of how the contributions relate to your benefits is that over 80% of your pension benefit will come from our investment return over time. So that's one way that we talk about our benefit in the plan.
Okay, is it possible? I always loved math as a kid. I still love math. I will just caveat this by saying on podcasts publicly, I'm not so good at math, although I do love it and I like to think I'm okay at it. Can we go through like just rough numbers? I was playing around with some of this, and I know people can go over their projections online, but you said years of service, and then basically if you took somebody who was making a salary of, I don't know, let's say $200,000 a year, what would, taking those numbers, what kind of ballpark defined benefit payout would that result in? Just so people can kind of get a grasp. Is that okay to do?
Sure. So I would generally run that through a pension estimator. So maybe what we should do is talk about what the formula is,
Let's
and
do
then
that.
how any of your listeners can go and model that on hoop.com.
Yeah.
So our formula is based on your service, so your years of service in the plan.
Mm-hmm.
It's based on the earnings on which you make contributions. Um, and so for our plan, when we go to calculate your pension at retirement, it's based on your highest 5 consecutive years of earnings. And then what we do is we multiply that by a formula, which is at 1.5% on earnings below the YMPE. So the
Mm-hmm.
YMPE is a measure used for CPP that speaks to the year's maximum pensionable earnings. It's
Mm-hmm.
currently around $66,000.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then it's 2% on earnings above the YMPE.
Yep. That makes sense to me. So you take 1.5% on earnings up to the YMPE. Anything beyond that, you take 2% of that, you add those two together, and then you basically multiply it by your years of service. Is that correct?
Exactly.
Okay. Okay. Now,
And
is
and
there,
before,
yeah,
sorry, before
yeah,
we move on from that, that is our baseline pension formula.
yeah.
That is what we promise into the future. There are two little things around, or not little things around that I think are important to understand. The
Mm-hmm.
first is for people who retire under age 65, we also offer what's called a bridge benefit, which is that delta between the 0.5 or between the 1.5% and the 2% on the earnings under the YMPE.
Oh, I see.
Now the
That's the bridge benefit. Okay.
and that pays out to members who retire before age 65 and
Mm-hmm.
after age 55.
Got it.
Right? So it's early retirement.
Yep.
And traditionally, bridge benefits were used to bridge you to when you might start your CPP benefit. That's no longer what most people do, but that's the traditional reason for the bridge benefit. Um, in HOOPP's case, we have been in the fortunate position over the last number of years of increasing our lifetime pension. So that's
Mm-hmm.
that 1.5 and 2 formula for
Mm-hmm.
most years of past service. So for most HOOPP members, we've actually increased the formula on all past service to either being a formula of 1.9 and 2 or just straight 2% for all of those years.
Mm-hmm.
These are changes our board was able to make over time.
Mm-hmm.
Members didn't pay any extra money for these. So it just meant that an active member who'd accrued a year of service in a year that we granted this increase had an extra benefit that they'll know they'll get in retirement from their
Mm-hmm.
formula. So for those members, there's nothing to bridge because the formula is almost all the way up to the 2%. So we still offer the bridge on the component between the 1.9 and 2, but you can see how it's a much smaller amount as a result.
Now, the earnings that are going to go into this formula, you mentioned it's the average of your 5 best years of earnings. Can that be at any point in time? Does it have to be your 5 most recent years? Are there any restrictions there?
So it's a consecutive period of 60 months
Mm-hmm.
over the course of your career in HOOPP is what we
Mm-hmm.
look for that high 5 is how it's sort of commonly called in the pension industry. That's different from, say, a final average 5, which would look to your last 5 years. So for people who have a period of service early in their careers where they're a much higher earning, we'll still catch that. And someone who tapers off their earnings as they retire or as they become retirement eligible and they want to go part-time for a while, we're not going to penalize sort of those decisions end of career in terms of the total of the overall pension benefit calculation.
Okay, now let's say we put the numbers into this formula and we end up with a defined benefit. Is there a ceiling to that defined benefit? This is something that I've heard, but I'm not fully clear on. I'd love to hear.
So I think one of the things that people talk about in this with respect to a defined benefit pension plan like HOOPP is that there are limits within the Income Tax Act to the earnings that you can accumulate on a tax deferred basis in a registered pension plan. HOOPP is a little different than most registered
Mm-hmm.
pension plans because we have a component of our plan that allows for you to accrue pension earnings on earnings in excess of that registered pension plan limit. So the way our plan is set up is that we can account for earnings at a higher level than what would normally be limited by that Income Tax Act rule.
Okay, so if somebody ended up with a calculated defined benefit that was high because of high salary, then they'd be eligible to be receiving that through
Yes.
Hoop's pension? Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And they'll
Now,
make
yeah.
a corresponding contributions to support the size of the benefit.
Okay. We're going to get into contributions in just a second, but before we do, which physicians are going to be eligible for this plan?
So I want to start with, we already do and already always have had physicians in our plan. So
Okay.
traditionally, physicians who have been enrolled in our plan and who participate in our plan and have been for years are physicians who are employees of our existing participating employers. The program that we've put in place is to help those physicians who aren't employees of our
Mm-hmm.
participating employers
Mm-hmm.
find a path to join our plan. And that's by allowing physicians who are incorporated or with their
Mm-hmm.
MPCs to join up for our plan. There are sort of two conditions to that.
Mm-hmm.
The first is any employer in our plan, including any physician MPC that joins us as an employer, has to be a member of the Ontario Hospital Association. That's simply a requirement of participating in HOOPP.
Mm-hmm.
The second condition to that is that the employees of the MPC, which would include the physician, have
Mm-hmm.
to receive T4 employment income to support their pension benefit in HOOPP. And that's because the Income Tax Act rules that apply to registered pension plans, and this is no different than any other pension arrangement, require that to be based on income from employment and not other sources of income a physician might have, like a dividend or whatnot.
Okay. I'm going to ask this only because people have asked me this, but the requirement to be part of the Ontario Hospital Association, the OHA, my understanding is that will come with a small annual fee. What some people have been asking is, let's say you retire and you start collecting your pension from HOOPP. In that window, does one still have to maintain membership with the OHA to collect the pension?
So I'm going to answer the question a bit differently than how you stated it. So the
Yeah.
obligation to be a member of the OHA is an obligation of our participating employers in the plan.
Mm-hmm.
So as the MPC joins the plan as a participating employer, and this is part of our overall governance structure at HOOPP and based on how we were established initially that obligation exists. So it's the employer, not the physician, who needs to be a member of the OHA. When the physician retires, I'm going to suggest that they'll no longer be an active employer in the plan necessarily. So that will depend on what the physician does at their point of retirement. If they're still continuing to have employees of the MPC participating in the plan, then obviously the MPC as the employer will need to maintain its membership in the OHA.
Mm-hmm.
But if correspondent to the physician's retirement, the employer is no longer going to be in our plan, then that obligation for OHA membership will fall away as well.
Okay, speaking of a corporation with multiple members, would all members in the corporation then be expected to partake in HOOPP?
So HOOPP has a philosophy for all of its employers, and this applies
Mm-hmm.
to physicians, MPCs, as well as any other employer, that what we seek to achieve is full participation. So what we mean by that is when you
Mm-hmm.
join HOOPP as an employer, we would like all of your employees to be eligible to join our plan. So a physician whose MPC has a number of other employees, our standard and our goal is that they be offered the opportunity to join our plan and that future employees are also enrolled in our plan in accordance with our normal enrollment rules. And that's how we apply our enrollment obligations to all of our employers.
Okay, let's get to the fun stuff now. So the yeah.
See, I think the fun stuff is getting in the not just the physician, but expanding access to those healthcare workers who also support our physicians.
Yeah, fair enough. The contributions now that we would be making to the plan each year, can you just shed some light on how these are going to be calculated?
Sure. So our contribution rates in HOOPP have been steady for over 20 years now.
Mm-hmm.
But they are subject to an annual decision of our Board of Trustees.
Mm-hmm.
So I just want to share that what I'll speak about today in terms of our contribution rates is not a promise that that's our contribution rates forever into the future, but a long history of keeping those contribution rates stable and steady. So currently our member contribution rates are 6.9% of earnings under the YMPE and 9.2% on earnings above the YMPE. So that's what a member who participates in our plan is required to participate or is required to contribute on their pensionable earnings. And the employer then has its own contribution rate obligation, which is effectively 126% of the member contributions. So both the member and the employer participate in the plan. And we recognize with a sole physician MPC, the physician is making contributions on their earnings, and the MPC is making contributions from the MPC. In both cases, they're tax deductible, but there are two sets of contributions that are required under our plan.
Okay, so there's the MPC contribution, the employer contribution, then there's the physician's personal contribution, the employee contribution, and both are going to be tax deductible, right? Like one deductible to the corporation and one deductible to myself as the individual, is that right?
Yes.
Okay, so now I want to preface this question by saying that we're not here to say that one type of pension plan is better than the other. I think the exercise today is really in educating everybody, making everybody aware. But then questions will come up, everyone will have them, as to what are maybe some of the differences between a plan like HOOPP and an individual pension plan, which I have covered on the podcast before. So one question that does come up is, over time, we want to make sure that we're putting in enough so that we're growing our fund enough and serving our retirement well. My understanding is that with an individual pension plan, as time goes on, as the participant gets older, there is the ability to contribute more with time as one gets older. Does that ability exist with HOOPP as well?
So you've stumped me a little because we're really talking about two different models of how you accrue your retirement. So I want to talk a bit about how HOOPP works, because that will give you the contrast to that IPP arrangement. We are very interested in HOOPP of ensuring people have good pension outcomes and coming up with the right pension outcome for the individual member. And part of our program with physicians is we are encouraging them to speak to their own financial advisors to really ensure that this is the right program for them. One of the components of our program for physicians is around setting a baseline earnings level that will support your pensionable earnings in the plan. So when you think about that formula for the outcome at the end of the day, the pension benefit is based on that formula. It's not based on the contributions you are putting in year over year in quite the same direct route as an IPP or an RRSP or a PPP may have in terms of the various accounts that underpin them. What you're building towards is that pension formula and the benefit it's going to pay you in retirement. So what we offer is that monthly, secure, safe, predictable pension in retirement, which you can't outlive. So you've hedged against your longevity risk. The investment risk is sort of taken off the table because that's what we manage on our end. You're making your contributions as an employer and an employee, but there's no other fees. There's no reports you're preparing. There's no filings that you're doing, except submitting the information to us every year to allow us to manage your benefit appropriately. So it is really a totally different model of collective growth of a benefit to result in that predictable monthly pension income. So when you contrast to your question about the IPP and the adding more money at the end, whether or not you can up your contribution rate when you get to 55, etc., it's sort of irrelevant in the DB pension context of a HOOPP-like plan, because your contributions are not what results in your pension formula per se.
I'm just trying to wrap my head around that. So I just want to make sure I understand. Pensions are complex. So that last statement, though, I can totally edit all this part out, but I'm just trying to wrap my head around that. So the contributions do not necessarily... Can you clarify that part for me, Rachel, just so I really understand it?
if you
Yeah.
think back to the promise, the
Yeah.
pension promise that we're going to deliver, it's your earnings times service,
Yeah.
or earnings into the formula times service. Uh,
Yeah.
so yes, a significant increase in your pensionable earnings year over year. And part of our physician formula is about how those earnings can be managed year over year. But an increase in your pensionable earnings will have an impact on your pensionable formula, on your pension formula in that regard. But a one-time step up in contributions isn't what drives the formula. It's the earnings, the service, and the formula itself.
Fair.
Um, so, sometimes when I listen to podcasts that are talking about the IPP or the PPP formula, um, it is hard to discern between that value of being in a defined benefit collective pension plan. And the way I think about it is we did some research back in 2018 about the
Mm-hmm.
value drivers of a good pension.
Mm-hmm.
And you can read the white paper that we produced as a part of this. It's on hoop.com. We
Yeah.
have a research section in our newsroom. But it really spoke to the cost disparity between a pension plan like HOOPP and the pension plan where it's an individual savings model. And
Mm-hmm.
at that time, back in 2018, we estimated that it had an impact of approximately $890,000 on an individual's retirement outcome. We looked at value drivers of a good pension, and we
Mm-hmm.
said savings, the ability to save regularly, the impact of fees and costs, investment discipline, fiduciary governance, and
Mm-hmm.
risk pooling create better pension outcomes for people. And a Canada model pension plan like HOOPP pulls all those attributes together into a single place to create positive outcomes.
Thanks for that, Rachel. Let me jump ahead maybe to my one question on how does a well-run pension like HOOPP, protect against things like inflation, longevity risk, and sequence of returns risk. You've already commented on the last two. Now, in terms of inflation, are there inflation adjustments in the payout, like a cost of living adjustment? Can you just talk to us a bit more about that?
Sure. I mean, again, one of the major attributes of the plan is that when you retire, you can count on a monthly income from us. And that monthly income doesn't change based on how long you live, in terms of it will continue to follow you. You can live to
Mm-hmm.
155 years old. Um, uh, and I chose that number obviously because I don't think anyone's living that long right now. Um, and and you're not worried about in your individual investment decisions and whether or not it's going to support that. The other thing we do in our plan is we do offer cost of living adjustments. These are
Mm-hmm.
an annual decision made by our board.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we have a very long and strong history of providing cost of living adjustments on an annual basis at 100% of CPI.
Mm-hmm.
So if you go to our webpage, you can see that history as well. It is an annual decision that we make, and we apply it to people who are retired and to our deferred members, who are members who were accruing a benefit in the plan, aren't today, but are not yet retired.
Okay, great. Now maybe let's go on to the funds in the pension. How are they invested, and kind of what have the returns been over time? Because I know that HOOPP in that regard has a very good reputation. Like it's done really, really well.
Well, they are our team of investment professionals invests the funds, and they have. Sorry about this. I am somehow at a loss for words to talk about how well our investment team is doing.
It's okay. It's okay.
um, so, so we are currently, as I said at the outset, at 115% funded. That was our funded status at the end of 2023, and we're just in
Mm-hmm.
that sweet spot in the annual process where we haven't come up with our 2024 results yet, but they'll be out within a couple weeks of you producing this podcast. We've been fully funded for over 15 years, so that means that we on all of our predictions, believe that we have enough money in our fund to support all of the pensions. And we've been in that place for 15 years, which is a very good place to be as a pension plan. Our But I actually, sorry, I'm blanking on our fund rate of return for the last number of years. I
That's
think
okay.
we
I think I saw it in the 2023 annual report. I think
yeah,
it
our
was.
total return was just over 9% for 2023. Um, and we have a 10-year average return of 8.43%.
So one thing I want to make sure that we are using the terminology properly, especially the listeners, because we hear about things like the funded status and surplus. Is that the same thing?
Uh, yes. And the reason I pause is because there are various ways that a pension plan will measure its assets and its liabilities.
Hmm.
And one of the regulatory requirements that underpins the pension plan is a requirement to test the going concern funded status of the plan
Hmm.
on at least an every 3-year basis. So that's the
Hmm.
year in Ontario. We at HOOPP um, have a habit of doing that every year. So when I
Hmm.
talk about us in terms of being 115% funded as at December 31, 2023,
Hmm.
that means that we have tested our plan using that formula for if we are to continue into the future, we believe we have 115% of the
Hmm.
assets needed to satisfy all of the
Okay.
liabilities the plan has accrued today.
Okay.
There are a few other measures that plans can do about their funded status. So for those who've paid attention to the differentiation, the one I'm referring to is called the going concern funded status.
Okay. Maybe, Rachel, you could talk to us a little bit about the maturation of Hoop's plan. When I was going through the 2023 end of year report, very interesting. And I think it showed in 2017 or so, maybe like a crossover point of, where the amount of benefits started to exceed the amount that was being contributed. But Hoop is still, like as you mentioned, in a very good status when it comes to its funded status. Can you talk to us about how the plan is maturing with respect to age of participants, contributions versus benefits being paid out, and how this all fits into Hoop being kind of prepared for the next many years and decades to come to support its members?
Sure. And I think you can appreciate that we are paying attention to a number of metrics internally
Mm-hmm.
um, to ensure that we are well set up for the next 200 years of Hoop. So in our annual report, what we want to do is speak to our members and other stakeholders about the health of our plan overall. So when you see us with that figure around our plan maturity, one of the things we
Mm-hmm.
are talking about is whether or not our incoming contributions have exceeded our outgoing pension payments in the year.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what's being referred to in that section. But you recall at the outset of this conversation, I mentioned that sort of 80% of pensions are coming from our investment return, not from our contributions in. So
Mm-hmm.
that's not a worry point for us.
Right.
It's just a fact of where we are in our existence as an organization who's been around for a while. When we look at our membership, we can actually see a slight decrease in the number of people who will be eligible to retire from our plan over the next little while. We're
Mm-hmm.
seeing a slight um, decrease in the age of our average active members. We continue to see strong growth in our active member population, separate and apart from this work to bring physicians into our plan. Our plan has a very healthy habit um, of growing year over year, largely because our existing employers are adding new employees to their workplaces. So
Mm-hmm.
we continue to see strong active member growth, which tends to be one of the measures members look at to understanding sort of the future of their pension plan.
Okay. This next question I have to ask because I know people are going to have it, but for a plan like Hoop that has performed so well with its investments, like you mentioned that its funded status, like it has 15% more than kind of what it needs to pay out its obligations right now. So then people will ask if there is a window of time with an individual pension plan where the pension does not perform very well, that can bring the opportunity to make an additional contribution or a special contribution. Is that also possible with something like HOOPP? And the only reason I ask, Rachel, one may say that if a pension's not performing well, like an IPP, then, well, that may be an issue in itself. But the reason I ask is if we're able to make that special contribution and create corporate tax deductions, that at least in that window of time can be useful. That's the rationale for my question. Is this possible with HOOPP as well?
So I do want to take it back a bit to the type of pension that HOOPP is, and sort of why that's a weird question in the context of a plan like HOOPP. So for you as the member, coming out of the plan at the end of the day, what we have said that we will deliver to you is a pension based on that formula. And if we see ourselves in a negative financial position as a plan, we have a couple of levers that we can use. The first is we can consider changing the way future benefits accrue. We can seek to maximize investment returns in a different way, or we could change contribution rates in the plan. And so that would be the change of the employer or the employee contribution rate into the plan. But in the path of HOOPP evolving, and in the as I said, our contribution rates have been steady for 20 years. Our annual returns have varied year over year. Largely, they've been very successful. But that hasn't changed the benefit a person is receiving at the end of the day. And when we contrast it to the ability to make special payments to different types of pension arrangements, that's so you can just stay even with what your retirement plan was. But our even remains. So it's sort of a hard it's hard to pick apart because you're just dealing with an entirely different model of how you accumulate your retirement income. And so in our plan, your contribution, if the fund was doing poorly, which it hasn't, and we chose to increase contribution rates, which we haven't, that would still result in the outcome of the pension formula going forward. But that to us would be something we're trying to avoid and not a positive outcome. So it's sometimes odd to me when I hear about, well, you can make special payments and bring it back up again. Well, you're throwing more money into the arrangement to receive the same net outcome at the end of the day that you were planning for. Doesn't feel to me like an efficient retirement savings. And that's the real benefit of the investment and the longevity risk that we take on your behalf, because you're not worried about the plan tanking and needing to put more money into it to pay for the benefit you've already accumulated in it. And so that's why it's sort of it's just a different way of accumulating retirement savings when you're in a pooled environment as opposed to an individual retirement where you take on and need to manage all those risks yourself.
Got it. Now, Rachel, can we talk about the costs of the pension when it comes to total costs? So administrative costs, investment costs, and what total costs could one taking part in the pension expect to pay? As
a member of the plan, your costs are your contributions.
Or I guess in terms of running the plan. That was my question is more about the costs that the pension incurs from an administrative side, investment side, because people will want to know this, and I know it's probably in your annual report too.
So it is, and this is where we're in that spot where if I can give you old numbers, or I can give you, and I can't quite give. If we wait a week, you'll be able to read it.
I know you can't quite give me 2024. I know you can't. Yeah.
So the real thing about our the cost to running HOOPP from a HOOPP side, and the costs that we incur, to have staff and to administer the benefit. The key component of that is that the members and the employers pay their contribution rates to the plan. They aren't paying contribution rates net, an investment management fee. It's just the contribution rates to the plan. There's no additional, you need to pay money for an actuarial valuation report. Those are part of the fees of running the plan. There's no additional filing obligations for the member or the employer. So all of those fees that are sometimes associated with other pension arrangements
Mm-hmm.
are not present for our members and our employers. They are only making their contributions to the plan, and our employers, to the extent they weren't for other reasons members of the Ontario Hospital Association, have that additional cost. But there aren't other hidden fees and expenses that
Okay.
are, or ongoing items that you need to prepare for in addition to um, the contribution rates and the submission and the cost to our employers of submitting to us the data that we need to receive from you on an annual basis to confirm your employees and their earnings and their contributions. So there's an administrative component of being in
Okay.
our plan, which I don't want to pretend isn't there, but there's nothing else.
Okay, so a plan participant then would make their contributions annually. They would be paying the OHA fee, but apart from that, there's nothing that they would be paying out of pocket. That's what I'm kind of getting.
Yeah, and it's only
Yeah,
the employer who's a member of the OHA. So the
got it.
members of the
Okay.
plan are making their contributions,
Okay.
but they're not.
Okay. So let's talk about now in terms of you decide to retire and you want to start accessing the pension. What's the earliest that we can access the pension?
So the earliest someone can retire from our plan is age 55. That's
Okay.
a product of legislation in Canada and would apply to any registered pension arrangement or a registered pension plan. The latest someone can accrue a benefit in our plan and defer starting their pension is
Mm-hmm.
December 31st of the year, or December 1st of the year in which they turn age 71, which is also a product of tax laws around when pensions have to start to be paid.
Okay. And can you just remind us one more time that bridge benefit?
Yeah, so for those members who retire under
Mm-hmm.
age 65,
Mm-hmm.
there's an additional small pension that we provide called the bridge benefit, which uh, is a formula just like the pension formula based on
Mm-hmm.
years of service and earnings of a 0.5% on a sort of a go forward basis. Um, but for those members in our plan who have received our past service benefit improvements, which have increased their lifetime pension, so the pension that is paid forever, not just the bridge benefit, that bridge benefit has been reduced. Um, so to the extent we continue to do that, those sort of change a bit.
Okay, what if life circumstances change and somebody who's a member of HOOPP says, "Oh, you know what, I don't know if I can continue. Are people allowed to pull out of the plan? What are the implications there?
So that there are a few ways in which that can happen. So a member who terminates their employment with their
Mm-hmm.
participating employer before retirement will terminate their active employment for purposes of the plan.
Mm-hmm.
When you terminate from a pension plan, you get options with what you want to do for your benefit. So you can keep your benefit in HOOPP and retire later. You also have the opportunity to transfer the commuted value of your pension out of HOOPP to a locked-in account or to another pension plan, or if there are some conditions in which that amount can come out on an unlocked basis if it's what's called a small pension payout. So
Mm-hmm.
that's for an individual who leaves their employment with the participating employer before age 55. An employer can terminate its participation in our plan as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's another way in which someone would cease to contribute and cease to continue to participate in our plan. Um, so it depends on what angle you're asking that question from. Are you talking about the human who doesn't want to continue to make contributions or the employer who no longer wants to participate in the plan? And both scenarios result in people being able to leave the plan, no longer being obliged to make contributions, and having those portability options that come with the termination of plan membership.
No, I think that's helpful information. I think you kind of answered it there. It sounds like life can happen. Should somebody choose to pull out, those options exist, and it sounds like portability options also exist. Now, oh yeah, last question on this. I just thought of most of the time, physicians have fairly stable income. Let's just say that the medicine professional corporation, for whatever reason, in a given year, the income is a little bit more lumpy and it drops. And what if there's difficulty in making a contribution one year? How do we kind of navigate that? Are there any options?
Sure. And this is one of the unique parts of how incorporated physicians participate in our plan, which are different than regular members of our plan.
Mm-hmm.
So when an incorporated physician joins our plan, we're asking them to establish with us what we call the baseline earnings. And that's the amount of employment income
Mm-hmm.
that they want to build their pension based on.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it obviously has to be an amount of earnings they have received or are likely to receive from their professional corporation. And
Mm-hmm.
that can vary significantly because physicians, you'll know more than I do, seem to have a wide variety of ways in which they choose to take their earnings and various
Yep.
strategies about how they take their earnings from their corporations. So we recognize that. And we've asked the physician to work with their own financial advisor to figure out what makes sense for them. And we've had a number of physician applicants apply to join our plan already. And we've seen quite a variety in baseline earning selection,
Mm-hmm.
$90,000, $120,000 a year, $300,000 a year. So once as a physician, you've selected that dollar amount as your baseline earnings, we then have rules around how much it can go up and how much it can go down without any other consequences year over year. So the happy path is you join with your baseline earnings, and every year you take advantage of the opportunity to increase that amount by CPI plus 1%. That's how we've built it into our plan
Mm-hmm.
text, which allows you to have some earnings growth to take advantage of the pension formula's use of your highest 5 years of earnings into the future. Now, if you do have a lumpy year, or if for whatever reason, as a physician, you're choosing not to take as much in terms of salary from your plan,
Mm-hmm.
we cannot accept contributions that aren't based on salary.
Yeah.
And so our rule is we'd like you not to go down by more than CPI plus 1%. But if the earnings just aren't there for whatever reason,
Mm-hmm.
we'll adjust your service for that year proportionately.
Okay.
So instead
Okay.
of earning a
Yeah.
full year of service in the plan,
Mm-hmm.
you might earn 50% of the service in the plan because your baseline earnings have gone down by 50%. And this is how we ensure that the physician can still have value in the plan for the year and participate in the plan. We recognize that there may be periods over the course of your career where employment earnings are going to differ. And that allows us to do that within sort of the restrictions we would otherwise have in terms of the accumulation of retirement returns or income.
Okay. Okay. That's great to know. Now, when the benefits are paid out, is this something that one can income split with their spouse as well?
So just like any pension arrangement,
Yep.
income splitting is available. I mean,
Okay.
that's done on the end of the physician receiving
Yep.
the income,
Mm-hmm.
and that's how it impacts the tax filing that the physician and their spouse will make. One of the really important components of our plan is the spousal benefits that are provided. So a
Mm-hmm.
physician who retires with a spouse, if the physician predeceases the spouse, there's a
Mm-hmm.
continuing pension paid to the spouse for his or her lifetime as well.
Mm-hmm.
So for a physician who retires and has a spouse and passes away 10 years later, but whose spouse is going to live, then lives for
Mm-hmm.
30 more years,
Mm-hmm.
the pension will continue on a reduced basis based on an election the physician makes at retirement to that spouse for the remainder of their life.
Now, you mentioned the reduced basis. I'm happy you're talking about this because this was my next question. I was like, we have to end on a sort of sad note. We have to talk about death and taxes always. So we're talking about that now. You said the pension would be paid on a reduced basis. How much of a reduction could one expect?
So the way our pension works for an individual who's married, when they retire, they have a choice.
Mm-hmm.
And the choice they have for their spousal pension is to continue the lifetime pension to their spouse at 66 and 2/3%,
Mm-hmm.
80%, or 100%.
Okay.
And that's the choice the physician makes. Now, if the physician picks either the 80 or the 100,
Mm-hmm.
it will impact their monthly amount. So the choice of 66 and 2/3, the physician gets for free under our plan design. We
Yep.
don't change the monthly formula. We don't change the way we pay the physician, but we offer the option to sort of buy up an additional pension amount to continue to your spouse based on the individual choice of the physician to that 80 or 100.
Okay, so those options exist to upgrade that at a cost at a
Yes,
okay,
it's an
got it.
actuarial equivalent.
Okay, I got it. Now, what if the plan member, like the physician and the spouse, both pass away? What are the implications for the next generation and the estate?
So, assuming that this is post-retirement, uh, the benefits paid, the physician's lifetime pension is guaranteed for a period of 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
So for the so if the physician and the spouse both pass away within that first 5 years of payment, um, the remainder is payable to the estate. If the physician passes or retires without a spouse to begin with, that guarantee period is a 15-year guarantee period. So it does depend on your status at retirement. Um, the physician with a spouse gets that continuing payment to the spouse for his or her lifetime and the 5 year guarantee. The physician who retires as a single person, there's a 15-year guarantee of pension income, of the lifetime pension income uh, payable to the estate or the designated beneficiary.
Okay, and what does that guarantee period mean?
So it means that we are going to continue the payment or pay the lump sum value, the lump sum present value of the remainder of the lifetime pension for that period of time. So if both the physician and the spouse pass away by the end of or by year one, the lifetime pension for the remaining 4 years of that guarantee will get paid out to the estate or to the named beneficiary, depending on how the physician put their affairs in order.
Okay, so I just want to make sure I understand. So the guarantee period, you described that, and so you said, sorry, the remainder of the pension would be paid out. Would everything be paid out, or is it just what would be expected based on the defined benefit, and then anything left over stays behind in the pool? I just really want to understand this.
Yeah, so I'm talking about the remainder of that 5 year period or the remainder of that 15-year
Okay,
period. So we're guaranteeing that you will get a lifetime
okay,
pension payment from us for at
yeah,
least 5 years, no matter what else happens, or at least 15 years, no matter what
okay,
else happens.
okay.
So if you're 1 year in, the 4 or the
Mm-hmm,
14
mm-hmm.
will be paid out to your estate or your beneficiary if that's the circumstance that you're in.
Okay. And then beyond that guarantee period, there is no more payouts, and whatever's left remains in the pension. Am I understanding correctly?
Correct, because
Okay.
what you are accumulating in HOOPP is that monthly pension for life in retirement. So it's designed to pay you for your life,
Mm-hmm.
and then if you predecease your spouse in those circumstances, it will continue to pay for the spouse. But you're not accumulating a pool of assets that then beyond those guarantees that come out
Okay.
of the plan.
Okay. Okay. And I think pretty much my last question is, instead of death, if there is disability, are there any benefits that the plan can offer there?
So we have two really important disability benefits we offer. The primary one that the plan offers is the ability to continue to accrue benefits without making contributions during a period of approved disability.
Mm-hmm.
So we will call this free accrual. But what that means is if you're a member of our plan and for some reason you are in a circumstance where you became totally or permanently disabled, you can
Mm-hmm.
continue to accrue your pension with us
Mm-hmm.
so that when you become retirement eligible, that period of disability with reduced earnings doesn't impact your accrual of benefits. The other benefit we have, which is significantly less popular, is the ability to, if you're totally and permanently disabled, start your pension from us at a date earlier than age 55, and
Mm-hmm.
that's a disability pension.
Mm-hmm.
So that is an option we have under our plan, which would apply only in the rare circumstance that someone is totally and permanently disabled and they would like to start to receive their income from our plan under age 55.
Rachel, those are basically my questions. Before we wrap up, I just want to ask you, like, did we miss anything big here that you really want people to know? And if so, I'd love to give you just an opportunity anyways to offer any closing thoughts that you have on this.
So we at HOOPP, and I personally, believe strongly in the model of pension that we offer, and in the value that it can provide to people, and the security it can provide to people, and the peace of mind that it can bring to retirement. And so having an opportunity to provide this benefit to more people is really exciting. And I really do encourage those who are interested to go to hoop.com and to read our materials that have been established specifically for the physician population. So we have a Joining HOOPP tab on our opening page, where you can read both sort of a big picture overview of how the plan works, and then a more detailed brochure intended to help you understand the program for our incorporated physicians. And then I'd love for you to talk to your financial and other advisors about whether or not this is the program that works for you. We are very passionate about providing pension income to people in retirement. I understand that it's very different than most other products that are commonly spoken about in the physician community, and we want to support people in making smart decisions that will let them have really great retirements. And so that's the one thing we've missed, is that it's really good.
Advice. No, I think that's all really sound advice. Rachel, I just want to thank you for giving us your time and coming on the show. I always learn something in these conversations, and really appreciate you making the time.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I've been listening to your podcast now for a couple of months, and I have really enjoyed many of the episodes. I think you have a podcast that should go beyond the physician population at this point.
Thanks for that, Rachel. That is the plan now. That's the plan, because I do think a lot of the stuff, like you say, we talk about, I think on the show anyways, it does apply to larger audiences. So let's see where it goes. But I really appreciate that.
Great. Have a nice day. Thank you so much.
Have a wonderful day, Rachel. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.